Hey there, friends and running fans. This is Amby Burfoot welcoming you to the latest episode of the podcast, Running State of the Sport.
And this is George Hirsch, your co-host at Running State of the Sport. In every episode, we talk to the smartest, most informed, most influential, and sometimes fastest runners on the planet.
This week, when we talk in a few minutes with Paula Radcliffe, we're really hitting all of those boxes because she's pretty much the full package. Now in her early 50s, Paula continues to be a major presence in our sport. She works in TV commentary of track and marathons, has her own podcast, which is titled Paula's Run Club, and promotes youth running through several different organizations.
Of course, in her competitive running days, Paula won the London Marathon and New York City Marathon 3 times each. Perhaps most famously, she set a world marathon record of 2:15:25 way back, Amby, in the 2003 London Marathon. So no surprise that record held up for almost 17 years, and it didn't fall until 2019, several years after the introduction of super shoes. But before we chat with Paula, we'd like to review some of the biggest running stories in running. So, Amby, what's been on your screen?
Well, George, you and I have talked about it. We and the whole track and running world are shocked that our great friend Jenny Simpson apparently collapsed and needed resuscitation after she paced a mile race recently in a track meet in Raleigh, North Carolina. We really don't have many details now. There's not a lot we can say. Apparently, her heart did stop and she had to have a defibrillator to get her back. A day later, we heard that she was making encouraging improvement, and we hope there's a lot more of that to come. You've known Jenny for a long time. I've even heard you refer to her as your date. Lucky you at some of the New York Roadrunners special events through the years. She's also been a guest on our podcast, and she, her husband Jason, and their 2 dogs actually had Thanksgiving dinner last November with my family after running the Manchester Road Race. So this one hits really close to home. We hope it's a really complete, total recovery soon. Out on the roads, there's a lot of celebration, I think, in South Africa. The Cape Town Marathon has been officially added to the World Marathon Majors, which brings the total of marathon majors up to 8 races. Also, the famous Comrades Marathon, which is actually an ultra marathon of about 54 miles, just completed its 99th running with 2 new course records. This year, the race had 20,000 starters and sold out in 10 hours. Did I mention? It's 54 hilly miles long, and it's still sold out in less than half a day. Next year is the 100th running, and we don't have news about the field size yet, but we're expecting that maybe organizers will try to stretch things up to 30,000 runners in a 54-mile ultra marathon. And of course, there's nothing bigger than what the London Marathon has just announced, which is that they really are going to have 2 marathons next year in April. 50,000 runners on Saturday, including the elite women, and another 50,000 on Sunday, including the elite men. The timing is a bit strange because there's no special anniversary or special event going on in London next year. Somebody just hatched this idea. They're all saying it's only going to be for one year. It's a one-off. But if they pull it off, I think it's going to be hard to keep it from becoming a regular feature in London. George, what have you been paying attention to?
Yeah, first, Amby, I just want to add all my good thoughts and loving wishes to Jenny. I mean, she's been such a great person in the sport. I think we could make the case she's America's greatest 1,500 meter miler runner with her world championships, her Olympic medal, and all she's done from her college days on. But Jenny is just one of those special people in the sport that we've come to love. She's gotten herself so involved as a youth ambassador at the New York Roadrunners, and she loves working with kids, and she's just a bright, bright person in the sport. And so she's so much in our thoughts. I'll just say that, and you know, all we can do is just send our best in her direction to Jenny and to Jason. So, Amby, new world records. It's still early in the season, but we're already beginning to see them. And one of the ones that kind of astonished me was at the NCAA championships in the high hurdles. And this guy is Jacoby Tharp. He runs for Auburn, and he broke the world record, a 14-year-old world record from Aries Merritt. That's a record that Grant Holloway never even gotten in his astonishing career over all these years. Amby, he didn't even break it in the finals. He broke it in one of the preliminaries. I mean, you know, we're seeing some incredible performances by young people and people at the college level. And then, of course, all eyes have been on the women's 800 the last couple of years, most of them focused on Keely Hodgkinson from Great Britain. But now there's a new contender in town, and that is Audrey Wero. And she's a Swiss runner, only 22 years old. And at the Stockholm Diamond League meet, she actually beat Hodgkinson with a stunning 153.98. And let's keep in mind that the world record, one that goes back to 1983, Jamila Kauchalova from Czechoslovakia at the time, was 153.28. They're knocking on the door. There's a world record that's been around an awfully long time. And with the two of them going head to head this summer, I think there's a world record that's in serious jeopardy. And in the men's 800, my gosh, you and I have been talking about Cooper Lukenhaus. He's just a phenom, 17 years old, out of Texas. And recently he took down the Paris Olympic champion at 800 meters, Emmanuel Wanyanomi from Kenya, with a thrilling stretch run. I mean, Lukenhaus is just, he's not intimidated by anyone. His tactics seem to be beautifully thought through. And he broke the tape in a personal best, 142.08. I think it's fair to say he's the biggest U.S. teenage middle distance star since Jim Ryan himself. And we remember, you and I certainly do, what Jim was like when he burst on the scene back in the 1960s, you know, a teenager out of Kansas. This is the biggest thing since Jim, for sure, Amby.
I've certainly got to agree with that. And it's impossible not to be excited about this year's track season. It's barely begun. Already we have these fantastic performances. I've heard people say, you know, there's no world championship this year. There's no Olympic Games. It's kind of an off season. Everybody's going to take it easy. No, they're not. Everybody's in great shape. They've got great shoes. They're using sodium bicarbonate, and they're going to run incredible times all year long. And we look forward to seeing those. So thank you, George. And that is it for our roundup of the biggest recent news in running. Now let's turn to Paula Radcliffe, this week's guest on Running, State of the Sport. Paula needs little introduction, as she's been one of the biggest names in running for almost 4 decades.
But here's the briefest of summaries. She's won the junior division of the World Cross Country Championships back in 1992, won 3 London marathons, 3 New York City marathons, represented Great Britain in 4 consecutive Olympic Games, and ran a marathon world record, 2:15:25, in 2003. That was at the London Marathon. That world record stood for an impressive more than 16 years until the super shoe era turned running upside down.
Paula, we had to keep your intro brief because otherwise we'd have never gotten to speak to you, which is our main goal. But welcome to the podcast, Running State of the Sport. We're so happy to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Paula, everyone in and around the sport and even way beyond the sport knows your name, but it's been a few years since your biggest competitive years. So let's do a quick bio, an update from you. How old are you? Where you're living? What's your family situation? And what sort of activities fill up your day at this stage of your life?
Sure. So I'm now 52. I live in Monaco with my family. We've been here now 21 years. So both of the children were born here. Actually, I say with my family this last year has been a little adjustment because Isla, my eldest, has gone away to uni. So it's actually just three of us at home during term times when she's away there. That's been a little bit of an adjustment. I have a fun way of dividing up my day, I guess, as there's lots of different things going on within that. For about a year and a half now, I've been running a podcast, Paula's Run Club, with Chris Thompson, who has been to New York City as, I think he's won the dash. He's certainly medaled in the dash in the past. And we started out as a build towards the London Marathon. Absolutely love doing it, and so have continued with that with a view. We're trying to grow it into an actual physical run club as well. So we'll meet up, we'll have maybe members of that club, and we're trying to expand that to really make the most of the running community because it is the best in the world. And so I spend a lot of time also with that running community, either commentating or fulfilling ambassador roles at events, particularly at marathon events. I also have a kids family run event, Families on Track, which basically is aiming to bring the family together by running, having fun together. So putting the phones down, it's a fun Ekiden typed format, except we run it all through a family zone. So small children can take part, and we have loops of 250 meters, 500 and 750. So the family achieves 10K together. And even small kids, we have no age limit on what age they can run around. They can go around in the pushchair if they want. It just counts for one circuit though. So we do that, and I do some motivational speaking. And then on top of that, I'm a mum. So yeah, a lot of things that I'm juggling in there. I'm also an ambassador for the Princess Charlene Foundation Peace and Sport based here in Monaco, and for Children with Cancer UK.
Whoa.
Oh, it appears you haven't slowed down at all through the year. I'm very curious about, you had a little mini comeback, or we'll let you define it, a year ago when you ran both Tokyo and Boston. You ran very well. You ran in the mid 250s in both of those marathons. You even won your age group, I believe, in Boston. So given how busy you are, what made you decide to run those two, and how did you find it?
The decision to do it, I guess, was born really in 2003. So when my career was kind of ended by my foot injury in 2012, it was a long road back to be able to retire on my terms at the 2015 London Marathon, which I'm hugely grateful to London Marathon for giving me the opportunity to do that. It was important for me to kind of tick off and say, okay, I'm retiring when I choose to, not when my foot dictates it. And then I was really just focusing on running for health, mental and physical, and just being able to enjoy running every day. And in 2023, Nike asked me to go and pace a group around the Berlin Marathon, and I ran in the super shoes and my foot survived. I went to about 38K. So that kind of like lit a little flame somewhere within me that was like, maybe I can come back and tick off that goal of completing the 6 majors. I know it had already moved to 7, but it was still 6 in my head from when I was competing. And so it also fit last year, given the athletics timetable, a little bit because I forgot the European Indoor Championship. So it was a quick turnaround from Tokyo back into that. But I managed to fit it in around everything else that I was doing. And the focus was really just to try and keep my foot as healthy as possible through the training and through Tokyo and enjoy Boston. And it almost worked, except that my calf just went at 9 miles in Boston. So it kind of made it a bit of a painful finish, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, the biggest thing was I'd really missed that buzz of the big city marathons, that camaraderie, the spirit that you get from being in the midst of those. And commentating on them is a huge honor, and it's really special. Nothing beats being actually in the middle of the pack. And so I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed that. It did take me about 5 months to get my calf back in one piece again afterwards. But yeah, I paid the price, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I got my 6-star.
Paula, let's dial back to the early days and how you got started in athletics. And was there a major influence when you were young? Tell us about your beginnings.
I think there were several influences. I think predominantly it was also the early 80s. There weren't that many sports available here for kids in the UK to try. My dad was a runner. He was a part of the early marathon boom. So he'd taken part in the early London marathons, some Liverpool marathons, and I knew right away that I loved the feeling that running gave me. So I had a friend at school also who was a year above me, and I knew from her that you had to be 9 to join the local athletics club. So I pestered my dad, and as soon as I turned 9, he took me down and signed me up to that athletics club, and I never left an athletics club since. So I've been a part of it ever since. I vividly remember also watching the 84 Olympics and footage of the 83 world champs. And I kind of say that my 3 inspirations into running are Joan Benoit Samuelson winning that Olympic Games in 84, Greta Weitz for what she did on the cross country, the dignity and the courage that she fought the cancer right to the end and made such a difference there as well. And of course, for the 9 New York City marathons and 5 world crosses. So she was a huge inspiration. And in 1985, I was an 11-year-old girl standing on the side of the London Marathon course, waiting for my dad to run past, holding his little mini Mars bar and carton of orange juice. And I witnessed Ingrid Christensen setting a world record that day. And I was blown away by the atmosphere of the day of a major marathon like that, and by the sheer power and speed that she was running with. So I kind of wanted to tread that path and to see how good I could be in that respect.
Wow, that's a good story, Paula. You reminded me of days when my 5-year-old daughter was handing me water cups along the local road races. You had such a head of steam. Was there nothing difficult or hard to overcome in your early days in running as you progressed through the club system? I mean, usually it's not a total rose garden, but maybe it was for you.
It wasn't. I mean, I think I really enjoyed it. I was part of a great group at the club as well. So my social network, if you like, was built around athletics and built around the running group. I did experience, as all girls do, all kids do growing up, little periods of ganging up and bitchiness. And I guess my response to that was, if you're going to do that because I'm running faster than you, then I'm going to put my head down and run even faster. So that kind of, I wouldn't say that was a big hiccup or anything like that. I had a very, very wise coach in Alex Stanton, and my parents were great guides around me as well. And Alec always used to repeat over and over, I don't want you to be the best junior. I don't want you to be the best under 15, under 17. I want you to learn the skills. I want you to love running. And I want to have somewhere to build to, somewhere to keep adding on when you get into the seniors. And so he guided me very, very well through those junior ranks. And I honestly think the strong team that we had at Bedford County helped, because we were winning, but we were winning team titles. So that pressure was kind of spread out amongst the girls. And we always had somewhere to build to in the following years. So I had little injuries like twisted ankles, small strains and things like that. But I didn't really have a major injury until my stress fracture in my navicular in 1994, which was in my second year at university.
You know, you went to university, but you really came up in running, through the famous British club system. And you're, of course, familiar with what we have here in the States, which is universities is really the way our runners get going. And what are the pros and cons as you see them of the club system in Britain and the U.S. University system?
I mean, I think they both clearly work. I think the club system in the UK, there are lots of pros for it. There's usually one fairly local to most kids. They have a great way of kind of starting younger. And I'm a big believer in the more we get kids in having fun, enjoying it in that kind of 13, 14, 15, and make it a cool way to hold on to them through those puberty years, then the better that is. The club system does rely heavily on volunteers in the UK. And so that has been a problem in recent years, just having enough people there to run the club events, to marshal, to volunteer, to help with the kids' training sessions and things like that. And I think that's where the collegiate system really does have much better support for the events at that level. So yeah, I think there are pros and cons. There is that tendency, or there used to be in my time, there used to be a little bit of a reputation that perhaps if you went into the US collegiate system, you had to be really, really careful because you could end up a little bit burnt out. It could be too much of a step up in training. Honestly, that's not why I chose not to go to the US. It was purely because I knew that the setup I had at Bedford with Alec was working extremely well, and I wanted to be able to get together with him like twice a week to be able to do that.
Paul, I happened to be in Boston in the snow in 1992, whatever year it was that you won in
92,
the snow.
yeah.
92. I was there too.
Were you, George?
Okay. I really was. I remember it well.
So did you go in expecting to win that race or hoping to? Was it a surprise? And how did it affect the arc of your career?
It hugely affected the trajectory of my career. I went into it, so I had to kind of give the backstory to that. The year prior to that, I'd finished 15th in the junior girls race in Antwerp. So that day, my coach kind of took the splits of the winner of that race. It was Lydia Cheremai of Kenya, and he worked out her average K split, and we kind of set a plan to train to be able to hold that pace. So I started going down to the track on a Monday night, in addition to kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and the weekend. And we were basically just running 4x and just trying to get, because that's the distance of the junior girls cross country at that point, and trying to be able to hold it at the, I think it was 3:05, 3:06 pace that she had run in Antwerp. And I got into good shape. And then coming into Christmas, I started not running so well. And we started to panic a little bit, didn't know what was wrong. I had done the work. I was eating healthily. I was sleeping well. I wasn't sick, but we just couldn't work out why I was tailing off in races and training sessions. So a British athletics coach at the time, Bob Baldaro, who coached amongst others Hannah England, actually was in charge of the world cross country teams, and he put me in touch with Professor Andy Jones down at the University of Eastbourne at the time, and he said, why don't you go and Andy can do all of the physiological testing and you can see if you can get on top of this. In the meantime, I did some blood tests and they found out that I was anemic, so that kind of at least solved the issue. And we knew that I needed to take iron tablets. I needed to be patient, but I could keep training. And in essence, I guess it was my first experiment with a kind of altitude training, because I was just learning to run with less red blood cells and then just gradually building them up through that training. And so Andy tested me, I think around January time. And then I went back again just before we flew out to Boston. So just before I left the house to get on the plane to fly out to Boston, the envelope came through with all of the feedback, and my scores were good. Really good. And so it was kind of the best confidence boost that he could give me getting on that plane out to Boston. And he was basically telling me that you're in the shape of your life. Just go out. Don't be afraid of anyone. Just run your race. And then we got into Boston, and there was an issue in terms of all of our team couldn't fit into the bus that they'd given us, the minibus that we had there. So they decided for the junior girls would not go on the Thursday to look at the course. We would go on our own on the Friday morning. And on the Thursday night, it snowed. So we were the only ones that actually saw the course as it was going to be raced on. And I think that was a huge thing for me because I absolutely adore running on the snow. So again, I thought this is another thing in my favor. I know what the course is going to be like. And we were actually driven out by a local guide who told me the story of Pat Porter and how many times he'd won in Franklin Park and how he used to do it by really firing off the top of Bear Cage Hill. So I thought, okay, well, if I'm up there near the front at the top of the hill, I'm going to just try and do exactly that. And then it worked, and I was able to do that. I was able to get away from Yunxia Wang as I came off the hill and ran down it into the stadium. So it was a huge confidence boost for me. It meant a lot. It was just as I was leaving school to go away to university. So in my mind, I thought, okay, now there's a real possibility I could make a professional career out of running. And I've got 4 years because I was doing languages. So I've got 4 years at university. If I work really hard through those 4 years, maybe when I leave uni, I don't actually have to get a job and I can just see what I can do with running. And that was the race that gave me the belief and the confidence to try that.
So, Paula, I have to follow up and ask you, what do you adore about running in the snow?
My mum says it's because I was born in a blizzard. I was actually inside the hospital. I wasn't outside, but it's just something that ever since I was a little kid, when it snowed and I'd pull back the curtains and see that, I just want to run outside and be the first person to leave footprints through the snow. And I guess I probably had some early races that went well on it as well, which always figure into you enjoying that. It's for me, it's tough to run on snow, but it's better than mud. So I think that's a little bit of also why I like that. But yeah, it was always a sign for me that get outside and run, be the first person to leave those footprints in it.
You know, it's interesting how clearly I remember that day, Paula, and it was certainly our introduction to Paula Radcliffe. And also I remember Lynn winning the senior race, Lynn Jennings. Yeah, it sticks with me very, very clearly. Let's move on, and we'll do this one quickly, and that's kind of dispensing with the Olympics question. And, you know, you've gone to 4 different Olympic Games and never won a medal. You had a high finish of 4th in the Sydney 2000 Games, and that was at 10,000 meters. And the pressure on you from the British public and media was tremendous. And how did you deal with the disappointments at that time? And how have you put them into perspective, you know, over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think the years definitely put them into perspective. I mean, if I look back and I talked about early inspirations and Joni being one of those, absolutely one of my dream goals as a kid was to get an Olympic medal. I never even dreamt of putting on there, setting a world record. So I kind of really live by that philosophy. You set goals, you don't achieve all of them, but you probably achieve more than you would have done if you hadn't tried to reach those. So that's why I think that Olympic goal was really important for me. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think the marathon every 4 years, it's tough. It's tough to get ready for one every year. But when it's only every 4 years, it's really, really tough to get that right. And with hindsight, maybe I should have moved to the marathon a little sooner. I couldn't ask more, I don't think, from myself. In 1996, it was my first Olympics, over 5,000 meters. I'd finished my finals at university, managed to squeeze in a little bit of altitude training and gone out to Atlanta. I think I probably ran as well as I was capable of doing in those conditions on that day. And I think, again, in Sydney, I gave it everything that I could do. I couldn't say I made mistakes. I just wasn't fast enough at the end, and I was beaten by 3 better girls. And so I did walk away from that race bitterly disappointed, thinking, what more can I do to get that medal? And I watched the marathon in Sydney, and I thought, I can run with those girls. So why don't I start moving towards the marathon? And so then obviously everything fell into place really, really well with the marathon, 2002, 2003. And probably because of those near misses beforehand, I think I had in my head, okay, you need to get into even better shape because it's the Olympics. Whereas had I just got into the same shape that when I'd run the world record, I probably would have been totally fine. But I ended up picking up a weird injury in that it wasn't an actual muscle tear. I had a hematoma between my quadricep muscle, so between my thigh muscle and my femur. And they found it almost a week before the marathon race itself. In the village, they had to go in and try and pull out the blood, essentially, from that blister there. And then they put in some hydrocortisone. They'd had me on anti-inflammatories as well. I was obviously stressed about not going, as you mentioned, George, there was a huge amount of pressure from myself and from the team, but also from the media and everyone. So I think it was a combination of all of that. And I wasn't absorbing, my gut basically shut down. I wasn't absorbing food as I needed to. And I kept saying to myself, it's fine. As long as you're taking the drinks and you're getting the carb loading in that way, it'll be fine in the race. Ultimately, I think what happened was I hit the wall for the only time that I ever have done that in my career. And I was devastated because I knew it wasn't the pain of the injury, but I didn't understand what it was, that I couldn't run in a straight line. I couldn't force myself to run through it, and I couldn't finish that marathon. And so I think actually all of that fear probably helped me to not really stress about the fact that I hadn't ticked off my Olympic goal. I was more worried about, was I okay? Was I healthy? Was I going to be able to keep running, and kind of healing in that respect? And so we decided to go away to Flagstaff, away from the UK, away from the kind of scrutiny there. And I kind of just said, well, if I feel like running, I'm going to run. If I don't, then I'm not. But 9 times out of 10, I felt like going for a run because running helps me to feel better. So it was also kind of my healing. Once I'd done all the medical checks and I knew that my stomach lining would recover, and I would be okay. So I was put on a special diet, went away to Flagstaff. And then there was a turning point out there where I came back from a long run and I said to Gary, I wonder if I could get into New York City. And so he didn't know, but he called up Mary Wittenberg at the time and spoke with David Monty. And they were super kind and kind of let me come in at pretty late notice. I'm thinking it was maybe 3 weeks before the race. And again, huge shout out to Dina Castor, who had got that bronze medal in Athens, was the big American heroine of that race, and absolutely welcomed me to it with open arms. And that was really, really kind of her. And she's a very, very special friend within this sport and a person within herself. So that was a huge, huge moment for me to get that chance to go to New York and just to enjoy racing again. And for that reason, New York always has an extremely special place in my heart, because it allowed me in and it kind of gave me a chance at redemption there. And then in Beijing, again, because of what had happened at Athens, and also because I had a bunion issue that was starting to cause problems. So we kind of tinkered a little bit with my orthotics. That ended up putting too much torque on my femur, and I ended up with a femur stress fracture in May of that year. So to be honest, when I look back at Beijing, I'm not so much disappointed with the way the race went. I just wish I had a little bit more time. We knew I was up against it there. I had 10 days of running outside before I went to Beijing, and maybe with super shoes you can get away with that now, but then I was fit enough, but my legs weren't able to withstand the pounding and I just cramped up. So I wasn't able to do myself justice. That fitness did come through again in New York in 2008. So I was kind of able to rebuild on that. And then my last chance, which was a very, very long shot of a medal anyway, in 2012, was really just for me to be able to retire on my terms in a home Olympics, and it would have been really special. And I think about 4 weeks before those games, the last bit of cartilage in my foot gave out and I was bone on bone, and it was just too painful to try and run it. So sadly, I qualified for 5, but I was only able to go to 4, and I wasn't able to retire kind of in London at those Olympics. And that's why that opportunity in 2015 to retire on my terms was even more important to me.
So, Paula, you said you never even dreamed of setting a world record in the marathon, and yet you ran 2:15:25, way, way ahead of anyone else approaching that kind of time. So, of course, we're curious, what was the training like that got you ready for that? The mileage, the key sessions, what did you do that got you to 2:15?
I think there were probably lots of factors. I mean, when I say that was when I set my goal right back when I was 11. Once I moved to the marathon, then I thought, yeah, this is absolutely a goal that I can work towards. I knew I was better suited to running on the road than on the track. And if I look back, the way that my training was structured from an 11, 12-year-old actually probably helped me to build towards that. And I mean that in terms of the fact I had no understanding of what a tempo run was, what an easy run was, what a controlled run was. We used to go down to the track, warm up, and basically race around 5 miles on a Tuesday night. And so that was an early teaching for me of how to push yourself, and how to kind of judge what your body's got on a given day and kind of pretty much put it all out there. And I was doing that in cross country races as well, which I think massively helped to kind of build that running economy. I also think I was very lucky in that I had a body that, ultimately broke down through injury, but for a period of time, it absorbed a big amount of training, and my mind didn't mind that. My mind didn't find it tiring. I actually loved being in that training cycle, and I saw it as a little bit of a game. How much more can I kind of absorb this week? And certainly when we moved to the marathon, I had some key sessions in the week, and I was on an 8-day cycle. So a rest day every 8th day was really important in that training schedule, because what that allowed me to do was recover between a hard race effort long run on day 7 and a track session on day 1. So it enabled me to kind of pack a lot of quality into that week. So I had a track session, which would generally be 10 to 12K on the track. And then I had a road session, which would be 5 by 6.5 minutes. I guess it started out at 2K whenever we introduced it into the training. But by that point, I was going a little bit further than 2 kilometers in that 6.5. We just kept it at the 6.5. And I would try and get progressively further on each of those. And Andy once did some testing on my heart rate, and probably this goes back to that early running. But what he noticed that I was able to do was get my heart rate close to max within the first 30 seconds of that rep and hold it there. And so I think that was kind of that was the only technology we had. We didn't have all of the GPS measurements and all of the Garmin's and Coros and everything that exists now. That was measured by a loop in the park, and my way of measuring the distance was to see if I could finish each rep a little bit further on and start at the same point. And the same with my tempo run in the week. So I would do a 10-mile tempo run. When I was in Albuquerque, that would be 3 laps of Academy. So it's actually 9.9. But it was kind of close enough. And again, I would start and finish at the same point each time and just measure my progress each week and try and bump that up a little bit. So it was essentially fairly simple, if you like, but hard, and trying to keep the speed in, because Alec was a big believer in the fact that you've got to be in 10K shape. So if they changed the race day from a marathon and said, okay, go race a 10K, go race a 5K, you should still be able to be close to your personal best. And that was kind of what we were aiming for with that. And I think my first marathon was a brilliant experience in terms of the fact that I went in with no expectations whatsoever about times. The plan was just to run with the other girls, to stay in the group until after halfway, and then just to kind of have fun with it. And I ended up getting a small gap around about 7 miles when I went through at Cutty Sark, which is an amazing area of the London course. And so I just thought, oh, well, didn't mean to do that, but my dad always said, don't look behind you, just keep going. And so I thought, well, I've always got the excuse that it's my first one. So if I mess it up, then I can just say it was my first one, but I don't feel like I'm going to mess it up. I feel like I'm kind of having fun with this. And so I think I went through halfway that day in 72, close to 73 minutes. And the second half, I was really just having fun with it and kind of surging, just enjoying the atmosphere. And I had no idea. The splits didn't really mean anything to me. I knew I was running quickly, but I had no idea what it projected to in terms of a finish time until I made the final turn in front of the palace, and I saw the clock, and I saw the clock said 2:18. And I thought the world record is 2:18. And I didn't even run the first half fast. So then that's when I said to Gary afterwards, I said, look, I know I can get that record. And it was really exciting because I'd never been in that position before on the track. I'd always been trying to run away from people. And this was the first time that I had a really specific time goal to aim for in my training. And so we went away this summer. And the other good side from that was I actually ran personal bests on the 3,000 meters, 5,000 meters and 10,000 meters on the track as well. And I won my first titles. I won the Commonwealth Games and the European Championships. So the marathon helped me phenomenally psychologically and in terms of physical strength. And all of those probably built into being able to tick off that world record in Chicago as well.
You know, Paula, we've been talking some about your relationship with Andrew Jones, the exercise physiologist, and that was a multi-year sort of work project that you two had together. And tell us about it, and how and why did you start doing the lab testing with Andrew, and you know, what did you learn from it all?
Well, I started doing it with Andy when I was anemic, way back. Actually, I was probably still 17 at the time, just before I turned 18. And because we kind of built up that relationship, he got on well with my coach. He would kind of give us some pointers into rough heart rate training zones, which Alec kind of laughed about because he was like, she's just going to run it. And then I'll see what the zones were afterwards when she gives me her readouts. But we kept working together with him. He helped me around heat acclimatization and seeing how my body, what kind of a sweater I was as well. So going into major championships, and that paid off dividends in Seville when I won my first medal on the track over 10,000 meters because it was really hot, those championships.
Super hot,
and
yeah.
we had got the hydration really kind of down pat. And he was able to kind of point my training at certain, so he pointed out that I'm not, I guess, a strength runner. I wasn't doing a lot of weights as a kid. So he would do things like the box jumps and show me how when I introduced weight training, that was actually helping to increase my power and to help improve my running economy. He was also the person who, when there were all sorts of criticisms of my style and how much I moved my head, he was the person who said, look, if you cover your head, your running economy is perfectly fine. And he would show me the data to back that up. So he said, look, we can, with strength training, improve your shoulder muscles and stop the real rocking and rolling that really takes away at the end of the race. But I don't think we need to really worry about the nod. I mean, at the time, Ilana Meyer was running very, very well, and she had a similar kind of nod to that. So he was really good at making me understand that, yeah, sometimes we have a unique style, but my style was actually efficient and good for the marathon. And I vividly remember in those early days, one of the VO2 max testing, I think it must have been around about 69, 70 at the time, and I got it up to 73. And I remember him saying to me, I've not read of any other female having as high as you. And it may have been totally made up, but it certainly helped me to kind of grow in confidence with that. And yeah, I think when we moved to the marathon, it was a conscious decision with Alex. We had said, look, I know from all of the lab tests, from everything that Andy tells us, we know you're going to be good at the marathon, but you have to want to do it. You have to be excited about doing it. You have to really want to take on that challenge. And that's why I guess we waited until I was 28, until 2002. And the turning point probably was Sydney, but the big turning point for me was also winning that World Cross Country in 2001. Because it was a big, big goal of mine. And I'd had a lot of seconds and thirds and fourths and 18ths. And so to finally win the senior title to go with the junior title, it kind of gave me the push. Okay, now I'm ready to go all in for the marathon.
Paula, I'm glad you asked. You mentioned the head bobbing because people who have no idea what VO2 max and lactate threshold are have seen you run at some point over the years, and they were like, "What is that woman doing with her head?" And so I'm curious first if anyone was ever able to explain it to you, what biomechanically made that happen, and a follow up with Andy Jones, who I know quite well and respect tremendously. He turned you on to beetroot juice a little bit. I don't know how much you actually used that, but you did a bunch of things that would not have been in Andy's toolkit. I think the nose strips, the compression socks, even titanium bracelets or things. What was all that about? So head bobbing and all the other stuff.
Okay, so let's go with the head bobbing first. I mean, I think the closest explanation I've had was actually through some work that I did at Nike headquarters with the optics lab, and I've forgotten his name, Professor Allen, I think, but I can't remember his surname. Was really, really perceptive in kind of picking up. He said that what I did is, it's when I push off my left foot, which is the one where I had the stress fracture go back to 1994. Now, I can't really remember if I did it a lot before that point. I think I probably had some neck weakness and I probably rocked and rolled a lot, but the actual pronounced eye rolling. So what he picked up was that when I pushed off my left foot, my eyes roll back in my head. And then my head has to go back because I can't see where I'm going. I need to bring my eyes back down. So it was kind of a subconscious effort to kind of be able to see where I was going. And the eye rolling, he said, goes back to, apparently babies do it to find a place of comfort. So it was like a pain escape mechanism. either through just pushing myself or perhaps through the pain in my foot and kind of learning to deal with that. So I don't know whether that is true or not, but it kind of made sense to me. Because it is more of just a nod, and it is every time I push off on that foot. So I think in some way it does make sense that it's linked to a pain management, pain escape mechanism, and probably why it gets more pronounced the more I get fatigued in a race, and the harder it gets. So if I run easy now, I don't do it, and people say, well, why are you not nodding your head? I said, because I'm not pushing myself as hard as I can. So I think that was definitely the best explanation that I had for that. The other things, so the nose strips were because I'm asthmatic. And someone did once say to me, I don't know why you wear those, because it only improves your airways by 5%. And I said, 5% is huge, especially if you're running a marathon. So that's why I would kind of open up the nasal passages just to try and get a little bit more oxygen in while I was running. The compression was born out of work that we did actually prior to joining Nike with Adidas on compression garments of the major muscles. And basically the more a muscle oscillates, the more you get the small capillary tears and the breakdowns and the intramuscular bleeding that produces DOMS later. So I didn't want to run in full length compression socks, although I do fly in them. So I just started with the calves, and it helped. And I guess the biggest proof I have of that is when I ran the 10,000 meters in Munich, and I ran 30:01, and it rained that day. So I had a double whammy, if you like, of compression plus ice compression, because the socks were wet and cold, and I was stuck in them for half an hour, 40 minutes or so post race while I went through all of the media and anti-doping controls and things like that. So the next day, my quads were sore, my hamstrings were sore. I had zero soreness in my calves whatsoever. Right. So I think it did kind of help just to limit fatigue there. What was the other one? Oh, the Titan. The titanium necklace was actually, I went to Japan and they talked to me about that, and I thought, well, it can't do any harm. And so it was one of those things that's not going to cost me anything to try, so I'll just go with it. Beetroot juice, to be honest, that was right at the end that Andy kind of happened on that. So I'd kind of almost retired by then. But I do love beetroot to the extent that when I was a baby and I was going on solid food for the first time, my mum actually took me to hospital because she thought I was bleeding internally, and I just had a lot of beetroot.
Wonderful.
So, Paula, earlier you mentioned the influence of Joni and Greta and Ingrid and Dina. Name one or two, perhaps, male marathon runners that you've looked up to, admired, and maybe have influenced you.
Oh, wow. So many. I mean, I think growing up, you've got to mention Steve Jones, Charlie Spedding getting that medal in 84, Hugh Jones as well. We had kind of a wealth of strong marathoners, but Jonesy was the real tough man, and he knew Andy well. So Andy would talk to me about his training, and I guess he would say, look, you don't need to worry about the fact that you just want to put your head down and run hard, because that's what Jonesy did, and it never did him any harm. And so I think since obviously I've had a lot of chance to meet him, to spend time with him, and he really is a top man, and is so generous with his time now, such a lover of just pure hard running. And yeah, I think I've got a lot of time for Steve Jones. Rob Di Castella is someone else that I really kind of watched. And I do remember vividly, he wrote me a very, very kind letter after Athens. And he basically said, look, you will be beating yourself up for not pushing yourself to the absolute point of collapse. He said, don't do that, because I've done that, and it took me a long time to build back from that point. So just let it go and focus on the next one. And it was just a very, very kind letter. So I think there's a great spirit amongst all marathon runners. Frank Shorter, I've chatted with. Bill Rogers is a lovely, lovely man as well. And again, so generous with kind of tips. And I think that's the key thing about marathon runners is the whole community of marathon runners is a great community. And you are really hard pushed to find someone that's not a good person in that, because the majority are, and there's a lot of support for trying to help the next generations coming through. And I think that's really key in everything. I've probably missed off someone in that.
Don't worry.
Herman as well. Herman's a brilliant character.
Oh, gosh, she's a favorite of ours.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
you can't name them all, and they would all name you in return, I'm sure. You know, Paul, I'm not sure if you're doing any direct runner coaching specifically for younger females, but you certainly must get the question. And I'm wondering when a young girl or the parents probably says to you, "Hey, my 15-year-old daughter, she's got some potential on the track. What should I do with her? How far should we go at a young age?"
Mhm.
Your thoughts on that question? Because that's a treacherous one in many
Yeah.
situations.
It absolutely is. And I think girls and boys have their own kind of hurdles at different stages. And as a parent of kind of one of each, but I have a son who's actually really getting into his running at the moment. And it is one that I go back to that early advice that my parents gave me, and that my coach built around me. And I still chat to my coach about advice for Raphael as well at this point. But I'm very, very conscious of the fact that it's extremely, extremely rare for the kids that are winning as kids to make it through to the senior ranks. And what they really need to be doing is learning the skills of pushing their body, of listening to their body, and patience. Patience is the huge one. And at different stages for girls and boys. So my son's now 15. He's kind of in that middle of that big growth spurt. He grew 15 centimeters in the last year, which is huge. So his body is still, his muscles are still trying to catch up. He's still trying to get into, that strength is still trying to come through. And so I'm trying to explain to him, listen, you have to be patient. You're not going to run personal bests all the time. There might be a year where you don't, and you just have to enjoy your running and kind of build the basics and believe that your strength is going to come in later years. Whereas I think with girls, it's more of puberty brings an entire body shape change that you can really do nothing about. And so I was very lucky in that I had a very gradual, my body shape didn't change entirely, at all really. And I grew very, very gradually. So I was able to kind of keep chipping away, keep maintaining it, and then to kind of grow into my strength then. There are girls, so their body shape completely changes. And I had a girl that I raced with over cross country, would beat me every single time in the under 13s, under 15s. She ended up going to 800 meters and I went to marathon, because the body just went in different directions. And so I think you can't really do anything about that. But the key thing you've got to do with all kids growing up is make sure they've got a really, really strong diet, because that is kind of built into them. So the calcium lay down, iron staying strong, just all of the key nutrients, and quickly enough after training and competition to enable that recovery. And sleep, I think, is key for kids as well. Really key. And it's a little bit of a battle I have with the school system here, which expects the kids to be in school at 8:00. There isn't enough time for rest and recovery, and that's vital when kids are growing up. So I think, you've got to really kind of put all of those key supports around the kids right up until 18, 19, and some will be at that point sooner, perfectly healthily. Someone like Inga Britson can do that. Others, like the example I always give to my son is that of Jake Whiteman. Jake Whiteman went from the tiniest kid in his class to the tallest, and it took him a long time to break through at senior level to where he was capable of, but he stuck with that. And in doing so, he actually learned tactics probably better than anyone else in that 1500 meters, because he was the little kid. He had to kind of make it up somehow. So he learned, or maybe he just had an innate ability to be able to read the races really well, but he's one of the best tacticians around over 1500.
So, Paul, you've mentioned your son Raphael, and he's pretty new to running. And so tell us, what's going on with his running, and how do you keep in the background and not stepping in there too much?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those things I've just talked about, the fact that the focus has to be on the future and just kind of building a base now. But I mean, I don't know how much in the background you can be. I look back at my parents, and they were a taxi driver for most of my teenage years, until I could drive myself, kind of getting me around the country to training, to races. They came and supported at every single one. So, and I want to do that. I want to do that for Raphael as well. I've also, I guess, from being on the receiving end of a fair amount of deep tissue massage, I've picked up quite a few tips. So I kind of go into that side of it as well, particularly while he's growing. And because he wasn't running at all, really, he was kind of doing a few races, but no training. He was playing football up until, probably about a year and a half ago. So into 18, 19, 20 months ago. So I do kind of, when he introduces and makes a step up in quality and in a training day a week, then I do just try and make sure that his legs are recovering and he's keeping up with that. Also cook, of course. And so kind of all of those things factor in. And just, I think, talking to him and reassuring him through that bit, because he is, I would say, a late developer. He's grown a lot, but he still looks fairly young, particularly when I look at other kids that he's racing who are almost grown men, and he's still a boy at that age. So it's kind of just, again, talking and explaining that patience is going to be key here. And yes, he would like to be winning all the races now, but I'm actually quite glad he's not. I'm quite glad that he's kind of laying that foundation and enjoying racing. And I remember having the same conversation with Cara Goucher about how Colt's running, and they're about the same age. And so, yeah, it's trying to really keep the enjoyment there, because I know that's why I had as long a career as I did do, because I loved it. And if you took it away from me, I wanted to find a way to get back to it. And that's kind of where I want him to get to, and not to come away from a race being disappointed if you haven't run as fast as you would like to have done. As long as you've given everything that you can in that race, there's not much more that you can ask. And we are fortunate that he's got a great club around him at AS Monaco as well. So I don't really need to kind of get involved. We more feedback on kind of how he's recovering after those sessions, or if we do some of those sessions on our own. And that happens when he's got the luxury of being able to go down to the French Pyrenees when Gary's got a group there training, and he can jump in with the big guys and kind of experience what that's like. And that's really just to kind of give him a taster, and I guess a little bit of a reward, because we can. And they're also great at encouraging him.
Paula, your answers have been so detailed and thorough with us. We thank you for that. We're not going to be able to get to everything we thought we might discuss today, but we'll have you back another time. However,
Okay.
I can't let you go with asking, what was your first thought when you heard about someone running a 2:09:56 marathon, female? Any thoughts now?
Well, I mean, I remember watching it, and I guess probably more telling are my thoughts during the first part of that race, because they were really like, this cannot end well. This is basically ripping up the rule book for marathon running. You can't start out this fast and expect to be able to close. So then I'm looking at the splits for the 5K splits coming in. I'm thinking, she's not actually slowing down a lot. In fact, she's getting faster again at the end. So it was, if I'm honest, a little bit of incredulence, seeing that finish, particularly seeing the way that Sifan Hassan was so broken, and knowing the caliber of athlete that she was, and the way that race panned out for her. I mean, I think that was the one she ran 2:13:44, right? She's capable, I think, of going faster than that in a more smartly paced race. And so that was the big telling thing then. But of course, we can't say anything then. I know what it's like to have accusations thrown around without proof, and it's not right. When the proof did come out, I wasn't surprised. And I'm a big believer in the fact that that record should, in my opinion, be taken away. I think when you fail a drug test in any event, I think you should then forfeit everything that went before it. And that acts as a deterrent. You may not have been doping at the time you set those performances, but if you know that you're going to forfeit those by doping later on, you're probably less likely to actually take that leap and dope. So that's why I'm a big believer in kind of wiping the slate once you fail a doping control test.
I'm in total agreement with that, Paula. I really am. And, records, of course, are meant to be broken, and your marathon record held up for a very, very long time. But I guess with the introduction of super shoes, that record was on shaky ground. And, there have been people who suggested there should even be two sets of world records, pre-super shoes and post-super shoes. Any thoughts from you on it? And what do you think when you see what women are running today at 10,000 meters, at half marathon, the marathon, the super shoe era? Just talk to us a little about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those deep changes in the sport. Probably the closest thing we had to that beforehand was the switch from Cinder tracks to tartan tracks and then Mondo tracks. And we didn't do this change with records then. I just think it would make it messy to have those different records floating around. It'd be very, very difficult to police in terms of how do you know what kind of shoes someone ran in if they run a performance now in the middle of the pack and it's kind of around that 2:15 mark of the old shoes. How do you know what shoes they ran in unless they go and register it? So I think it would make it messy. And I think we just have to accept it as one of those advancements that has kind of changed the sport. And I think the big part for me was when it was unfair, when it was available to some athletes and not to others. And you could argue it still is a little bit unfair in terms of some people respond, some people don't to the plates. But it does now feel a lot fairer now because that technology is out there for everyone. And we just kind of have to accept that the playbook's kind of changed a little bit in terms of, for example, in old shoes, you generally ran faster on the track than you did on the road. So your 10,000 meter PB would be quicker than your 10K road, and for the 5,000 meters as well. Now it's almost flipped that around, and people can run faster with the super shoes on the road than they do on the track, and they've got the plate on the track. So it's clear that the shoes do give you a bigger boost on the road than they do on the track with those improvements. And I think, we just have to follow it as a fan of the sport. What it perhaps is doing is giving us the chance to see those records being broken, to get that sport advancing. Maybe that's one of the reasons we might finally see the women's 800 meter record go this summer. And that's a good thing because that's not encouraging doping to perhaps touch performances that we can talk about maybe have been. So I think that in that way, maybe it's a step towards making the sport cleaner, but still having that advancement going in times. And as an aging runner, they are also great for keeping runners healthy, keeping your joints healthy. And that's predominantly the foam, not the plate. But that technology improvement is something that I benefit from on a daily basis in terms of being able to run. And probably I wouldn't have been able to come back and run the 6 stars had I not had those super shoe technology to help me. I mean, I didn't actually run in super shoes, but I did run in the foam and a plastic plate. And so I think that helped. So yeah, I think it's a different era. And so long as what I'm really vocal about, I guess, is that we don't forget those performances of the past. So we talked about Steve Jones earlier. If you look at his 2:08 world record, that is still up there. That was still a phenomenal performance. And yes, we've seen 2 hours broken. Now we kind of see a lot of men around that 2 hour 2s, 2 hour 3. It doesn't mean his wasn't almost as good a performance as that without the nutrition improvements and without the shoe technology.
Paula, you're still in your early 50s, but I'm looking ahead to Paula Radcliffe at 60, and I'm noting that you won marathons in your 20s and 30s, and you won age group divisions in marathons in your 40s and 50s. So is there a marathon comeback at 60?
I don't know. I mean, never say never. They keep adding more majors, right. So that makes that a little bit tougher. I think, the biggest thing for me now is just staying healthy and being able to run. I do look to Joni as a huge role model in that, and the way that she's been able to keep doing that and keep telling little stories. So I don't know. I mean, if my foot could withstand it, I'm not ruling it out, but it would probably be more with a view to getting in the midst and experiencing that atmosphere and that ambience and that camaraderie rather than trying to win a race. I don't see myself, I'm actually quite okay with the fact that I got a long run at being competitive, and now I'm running for me. I'm running for fun. I'm running to be a part of that atmosphere, which I think is what probably the majority of people taking part in those major city marathons are doing. They're not trying to beat anyone else. They're just trying to be a part of it and to enjoy it and to get to that finish line.
So, Paula, Seb Coe's going to be leaving the presidency of World Athletics in another year or so. Have you thought of running for that position, and why wouldn't you? The Olympic Games now has a female president. World Athletics has never had one. Isn't it time?
No, I mean, it is something that I maybe considered, to be honest. I mean, I do want to give back to the sport, and I do want to get our sport into a strong place. And I think Seb and John Ridgen have done a great job at kind of bringing that back. And is it something I'd like to get involved? I think on Seb's side, I'm not sure I'm cut out for politics. It's not something that really interested me. I prefer to actually get out there and get it done rather than spend a lot of time talking about it and going round and round in circles. So I think it's probably something that I'd more get involved with down the kind of management route and actually making a difference rather than as a figurehead. And that's not to kind of disrespect Seb in any way. I think he just is a born politician, and it's not something that I've really felt comfortable with. But you're absolutely right. I do want to kind of give back to sport. It's a sport that I absolutely love, and I want to see everybody get the opportunity to enjoy that, and I want to see it be in its best form. And I think that's why perhaps within road running, perhaps I'm more kind of going that area. I don't know. I just kind of feel like just that organization, just improving the accessibility of females, of kids, of everybody, just being able to get in, because that is the one great thing about track and field and about marathoning, is that it is so open to everybody. It's so diverse, and we have so many people in it, and improving that accessibility even further so that we get more and more involved is kind of where I want to go.
Well, Paula, George and I think Seb has done quite a great job with his tenure at World Athletics.
Mm-hmm.
It came from a position of, let's say, athletic grandeur, and it didn't hurt. And you would be in the same place, and it wouldn't hurt. So you might get our vote also, even though we don't have votes.
I think there are steps, though. You have to be a vice president to be able to stand for president, and I'm not even on council. So I think I'm not really in the right place to be able to step into that.
I actually tried to check that out the other day, and that isn't what I found, but what I found might have been entirely wrong. Anyway, moving on past your future presidency of World Athletics. This podcast, of course, is called Running State of the Sport. So we would like to ask you, from your perspective, what is the state of the sport? What's really good? What's okay? And is there some things that could use shoring up?
Okay, so I think the state of running is great at the moment. Obviously, there are still areas that we can improve on, but I think while we are seeing the numbers coming into mass events, I mean, I'm thinking of the 1.3 million that applied to get into the London Marathon for next year. The marathons each year are sold out. Those experiences are growing and growing and growing. They're giving back in a phenomenal way to charities. I guess so that area is really healthy. For the first time in the London Marathon ballot entries for this year, women were in the majority. Which is brilliant. I love to see that kind of parity and around there, and kind of women showing that, yes, they can step up to the marathon distance and being supported in doing so by the males and by their family. So I think that is working really, really well. I guess the biggest area also within that, 35% of applicants were in the age group 18 to 29. Which is super healthy. So that generation, Gen Z or whatever we call them, my kids are, they are actually kind of turning to running as a great pastime, and they're picking it up. It's a really, really healthy base to get into. So I think that's brilliant to see. Where do we need to focus? I think it's on supporting kids into the sport, the youth of the sport, and perhaps doing more research. And now we're getting kind of to the little bits, because I do think running is in a great spot. But getting to those little areas where you can perhaps support perimenopausal, menopausal women a little bit more, because we do have, as well as we're having that boost in youth coming in, we do have runners that have been running forever, and kind of perhaps need that support in keeping bodies healthy as well. And the foam has really made a big improvement there. But there can probably be still more improvements in terms of just improving the enjoyment factor for every runner out there. But yeah, my focus would be on those kids, getting them introduced to a sport and making it fun at the first experience. It doesn't want to be a miserable experience. For your first experience of running, we want to make it fun. And that's where the kids events, in my mind, giving the kids the chance to cross the New York City Marathon finish, to cross the London Marathon finish and get their medal the same. That's an invaluable experience in terms of keeping them in the sport.
Paula, if you have time, and we've hit the hour mark already, for one more question, Amby and I often like to end with 3 fairy godmother wishes. We only give you 3. For yourself, your family, your friends, the sport, whatever. Just 3 wishes that you'd like to make.
Okay. I might have to get a little bit creative in terms of lumping them together a little bit here, because I'm going to put one of those wishes that all of my family, my kids, they get to achieve their dreams. They get to kind of tick off towards those, because that's something that I'm really passionate. They kind of seek out what makes them really come alive, that dream goal, and they work towards that so that they would be able to achieve that would be one of those. I think, to clean up the sport even further. So maybe we have, like, I don't know, everybody's nose goes blue if they're cheating. So just some way that you can kind of eliminate cheating. I know it is, you said it was a fairy godmother thing, so I know it's probably pie in the sky and we are kind of working towards it, but I would love to be able to get everybody out there running on a level playing field so that inspiration factor in my mind would just kick up from watching those races, because you can believe in every one of them. And then the third one, I had to think about this one because I don't really want to go selfish, but I would like to get to be able to keep running in my life for as long as possible. So yeah, if I had kind of a magic wand, I would like to be able to keep running right until the last day.
That is not the least bit selfish. It's just smart. And so that's a wrap with our podcast this week with Paula Radcliffe at Running State of the Sport. Paula, on behalf of George and myself, thank you so much for being with us. It's been an unbelievable pleasure and honor and very informative to talk with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Amby, I thought Paula gave us a lot of incredible detail and depth in that conversation. What stood out for you?
Well, she was sensational, George. She follows every aspect of the sport, which I find very impressive, from the latest training techniques to the latest science and even the demographics of how many people are applying for the London Marathon and things like that. Of course, I especially loved all the talk about her training and laboratory testing back in the day, the way she wore compression socks. She felt it protected her legs. The nasal strips helped her get a little bit of air in and stuff like that. A lot of athletes don't use those things, but Paula was one who adopted them. But you know what I think I'll really remember about this chat with Paula was the way that she gave so much thanks and gratitude to the people who have supported her athletic career. That started with her marathon running father. You got to love the image of what was she, an 11-year-old or 8-year-old Paula Radcliffe standing at the side of the London Marathon when her father runs past in the old days. That's a great image. She said the same wonderful things, the strong thank yous to her coach, her physiologist, and many others, and particularly when it got to the athletes who were half a generation or a generation before her. She mentioned Joan Benoit Samuelson, Greta Veit, Ingrid Christensen, Dina Castor, and others, and even got into the guys. She particularly liked Steve Jones because he's just plain simple and tough, as we all know. Also mentioned Charlie Spedding, a name we haven't heard for a while, and of course, Rob DiCostella. I think we all realize we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, and Paula definitely gave them credit. And I say, well done, Paula. Well remembered. What stood out for you, George?
A number of things, Amby. Quickly, one of the things was her full and honest review of her Olympic disappointments. She seems to have put all that into a very good place and a good perspective, as you would expect someone like Paula would. But I really want to focus on her comments about stripping records from anyone who's been found to have doped. And that means stripping their records ever. And we're talking in this case about Ruth Chepngetich and her 2:09:56 marathon. That shouldn't stand. I mean, the fact that she wasn't caught doping in that particular race, I totally agree. And I think most people in the sport do. And I think World Athletics has got to get around to the fact that if you are a proven doper, I think all your records have to be scrubbed. So with that one, I'm in total agreement with Paula. Yep.
Well, I am too, George, and thank you for that agreement with Paula. And so that wraps it up for this week's episode of Running State of the Sport. We hope you enjoyed joining us as much as we enjoyed sharing the time with you. We'll be back again soon with another episode. Until then, please tell your friends about Running State of the Sport, and we'd also appreciate a review at your favorite podcast host like Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. In signing off, here's our hope for the state of your own personal running. Chin up, clear eyes, full heart, keep moving, onward.